another up close video. So I've got another one for Polkadoodles today, and this is their Sweethearts collection, which is launching in January of 2020 on Hochanda. So I'm sure this video will sort of go up on the same day as the show's launch. And there is 4 new stamp sets, 2 new stencils and a new paper pack as well, and it's all kind of like Valentine's themed, but obviously you don't have to just use them for Valentine's cards either. So I'm going to show you the paper pad first. So this is the Timeless Rose craft papers, and you get 24 sheets and there's 8 designs, and you get 3 of each design, which is really nice because you don't feel like you're using up your one and only sheet of a piece of paper. I've used quite a few of the designs actually, doing some paper piecing, especially with this balloon. I think that works really nicely for that. And I also like colour tinted the papers as well. I used this one on one of the cards and I colour tinted it with a luster polish. I really love the fleur-de-lis design in this one. I really like fleur-de-lis. It's really, really pretty. And I was also jelly printing on top of some of them with the new stencils as well. So we've got that gorgeous fleur-de-lis one, which is kind of like, almost looks like Moroccan sort of tiles, but when you look closely it's got the little fleur-de-lis in it. Then we've got this gorgeous polka dot one, which is a mixture of large and small polka dots. They're a uniform pattern, but it's got that kind of vintagey look in the background of it as well. And they're all a gorgeous a pinky spectrum, but it kind of goes beige to pinky, so they're not too like in your face sort of pinky colours. This one is one of my favourites. I really like this one. It's sort of all different layered up like foliage, and it's got that stripy effect in the background, and there's different sort of patterns within the foliage. It kind of looks like a jelly print really, that, you know, that kind of effect that you get when you do jelly printing using different stencils and stuff as well. I really like that. Then we have this one, which is kind of like almost like a subtler version of the one I just showed, and it's really like sort of nice light pink on light pink. I used this in a background as well. I actually heat embossed in the pink popsicle Nouveau embossing powder. That colour works really nicely on it, and also spun sugar Distress Oxide or Distress Ink is a really nice match for this really light pink toned paper. I just really love that floral, or not, yeah, floral foliage design. I really like that. This one's a little bit more in your face. It's kind of like a watercoloured heart background, and you've got sort of that texture that you get within a watercoloured design, but obviously it's all done for you, so it makes it really easy to get that kind of look on a background for your card, but you know, it's instant because it's a piece of paper. A really nice stripy design. It almost looks like planks of wood, and they've sort of got different shading and a little bit grungy on it as well. Then we have a gingham design, which has got little hearts within the sort of gingham crisscrossy pattern. I really like this one as well. I think I was using that for paper piecing with the balloons. And then we have another heart design. It's kind of like a heart lattice where the hearts are where the crisscrossy sort of meets, and you've just got basically uniform rows of hearts. So if you just wanted an extra strip of pattern paper or something on a card, you could just like trim out a row of hearts and that would look really pretty, or 2 rows or 3 rows, or even trim them into little squares and like build a kind of patchwork look on your card. That would look nice. So that is the Timeless Rose paper pad that's in this Sweethearts collection. Some really gorgeous designs that you can just use as they are. You can colour tint them, or you can jelly print on top of them, stamp on top of them, heat emboss on top of them. I've really been enjoying heat embossing onto pattern papers. I used to do this a lot when I used to use like those card kits that you'd kind of get with a load of papers and the toppers that pop out and stuff. To try and make it look more my own, I used to like clear heat emboss onto pattern papers and stuff, and it works really nicely on these papers because they're such a good quality. They don't warp and ripple with the heat of the heat embossing, which is really great. And also they take mediums really well, because as I was saying before, this one I like colour tinted it with this one. It's the Raspberry Sorbet luster polish from Cosmic Shimmer. It's got that really gorgeous glitter in it. and I covered the whole paper in that, and I think I'd actually sprayed it and I dipped it into it when it was wet, and it hardly warped at all, so they're really decent quality. What GSM does it say? 160, yeah, that's pretty decent quality for patterned papers. You can tell, really decent, so they're really good for all sorts of different things, and they tear really nicely too, which is good. So that is the patterned paper. Then we have the two new stencils. This one is called the Heart Stencil, and it's the same size as some of the other stencils that Polkadoodles have done, so it kind of fits a DL sized card perfectly, but if you like your A6 or American A2, obviously you can just use the lower portion or the upper portion or the middle of the design, and it'll fit really nicely on your card as well. I really like this one. This one's also, I've used it like scraping a medium through it and then taking it off, so you kind of get the pattern is not there where this pattern is, if that makes sense. But if you wanted your pattern to actually look like this, it's a really good one for squishing like your distress inks onto the stencil and then spraying it with water and flipping it over and pressing to get your design, or also on the jelly plate. It makes really nice prints on the jelly plate too. And then this is the Swirl stencil. Again, I was using this one a lot on the jelly plate, and it gives really cool designs, and you can also just use a piece of cut and dry foam and stencil through it as well, which I did on one of my cards. It's kind of a little bit hidden, but I will point that out to you as well. So as I've just gone through the stencils, I'll show you my examples using the stencils now, and then I'll show you the stamps, and then I'll go back through all the samples again. So this was one of the ones that I did. This was using the Cosmic Shimmer Multi-Tex, which is kind of like a powder, and you mix it with water and a little bit of glue, and it makes yourself a texture paste, or you can just use normal texture paste, but I don't have any, so I just used that to create the design. And I just took the heart stencil, placed it onto the card, and the card I'm using, you can see the linen texture in it. It's actually the Arteza acrylic pad of paper, so it's a 400 GSM cardstock, so it's really sturdy and it doesn't buckle and warp too much, especially when you're adding like thick texture paste on it. So for this one I scraped the texture paste through it and then pulled the stencil off, and then you got this really cool design. And then once the texture paste had dried, I came back in with some acrylic paints, watered them down a bit, and sort of did a messy wash kind of effect on it with a bit of like darker tones and stuff. And then once that was dry, I came back in with a gilding polish. I used the Lime Burst gilding polish on this one, and I dragged it back over the top of the texture paste, so the raised portion, it does get in the background a little bit, but I like that look. So the raised portions is all covered in gilding polish, so it's nice and shiny and mica-y, but you can still sort of see the design behind. Then another one using the heart stencil, I did this one. So this was where I was just saying about you could squish distress inks onto the stencil or flip it over and print it, or you can ink blend your background with your distress inks, like here, like a rainbow kind of effect, and then you spray your stencil with water and then flip the wet side onto the paper. So I did that as a background with this rainbow effect, and you can see the other pieces that I've trimmed out of here I used down here to bring the rainbow, the sort of the reds and the oranges down the bottom of the card. And then I got another piece of card the same size, placed the stencil once I'd cleaned it onto that piece of card in the same way I had placed it, you know, the same diagonalness that I had placed it on the rainbow piece when I'd put that down. And then I used pumice stone distress oxide and inked through it, and then I trimmed the first piece onto the rainbow into different sections and then lined it up. So the pattern is continuous, but it goes from being the like negative version of the pattern on a rainbow colour to the positive version of the pattern on white on the pumice stone colour. So I just thought that's a cool way of using stencils. I often forget to use them like this, you know, just like a normal stencil way really. I often do like really messy inky kind of backgrounds with them, but this is kind of more clean and simple really, just having fun with some ink blending. So I thought that was a cool way of using it. Then these three are all using the the Swirl stencil. So this one was just a really simple jelly print background, and I actually used the stencil this way twice on the jelly plate to cover that whole section, rather than doing it this way and having a little bit of a solid border down the side. I did it twice this way, and I was using the Pebeo Diner paints. So this is one that has a bit of a blue tinge to it. Have I got it here so I can tell you the actual name? Nope, that's not the Diner paint. This one. It is the Iridescent Red Blue. So it's a red colour, but it has a kind of a blue hint to it. When you see the mica in it, it kind of gives a little bit of a blue hint to it. So that, how did I do that one? So for this one, I just sprayed on a thin layer of the Diner paint onto my jelly plate. Then I placed the stencil down once, and got a piece of scrap printer paper and pressed through the openings. Then I removed the stencil, placed it down again, and again pressed through the openings. And then when you've taken the stencil off, you're left with this pattern on your jelly plate, and then you can just pick that up as just a single layered print. And that's the kind of background that you can get with it. And then this one is the same stencil and this same colour on the top of it. However, underneath of it, you can see there's kind of like this brush strokey effect. And the way I did that was I took some silver acrylic paint, did a thin layer of that on the jelly plate, and then you take your watercolours, and I was using Gansai Tambi watercolours, and then you want to take a flat paintbrush, so one that's like this, you know, sort of a flat one. You want to dip that into your watercolour paint and literally just swipe it across the jelly plate. So you're swiping watercolour paint on top of acrylic paint, but because you have that acrylic paint on the jelly plate, it doesn't bead up like it would if you didn't have the acrylic paint, so it kind of gives you that brush stroke that's still in the background. There's another card as well that you can see this on better, but once I had that background, I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I print on top of it. And so I decided to have that background first and then basically do the same thing that I had done on this one, but you get a completely different look because you've got that blue and silver underneath the pinky kind of tone. So that's this exact same process to get this pattern on top of here, but you get a completely different look. And then I picked out the same kind of colours to colour in my topper element on that one. And then this one is the really subtle kind of use of the swirly stencil. So for this one I was using the same watercolours that I'd used on the jelly plate, and also the same silver acrylic paint, but I'd put them on my Nuvo Easy Clean matte, or the white one that comes with the media matte, and then I put my card face down and I twisted it in it, so you get this like motion of a twisty effect. And then once that was dry, I placed this stencil on top. Can I get it in the same place? Like this, I think. Yeah, it was like this. So I placed this on top, and then I stenciled through with some of the silver and some of the dark blue that I had used, and you can see there's that slight kind of pattern in the background down the middle. And then I heat embossed with some of the stamps as well. So that is the samples that I've done with the stencil. So I'll just order these into the same as the stamp sets, and then I'll show you the stamps and show you the cards as well. Okay, so these are the 4 stamp sets that are in this collection of goodies. This one is, the first one is called Splendoured Love, and that's because it has this sentiment in it that says love is a many splendid thing. And it also has Valentine, Always, My, Heart and Be, so you can do Be My Valentine, My Heart, My Valentine, you know, all sorts of different combinations you can do with the words. Then you've got this gorgeous bouquet of balloons, which I really like, and on the card that I used it on, I did 3 of the bunches, and they all sort of joined to the same point, but then I paper pieced them so I didn't have to worry about masking them. I used the pattern papers to add the balloons back over the top. Then this gorgeous focal element of a heart, I used 3 times actually on some cards, either just like heat embossing it in the background, or having it as the actual focal element like in black and then colouring it. Yeah, I did both of them in black, I think. One of them I heat embossed with clear as well, so you can do watercolouring and you don't go out the lines quite so much because it's quite a lot of fiddly little detail to colour in. I think this would also look really nice stamped in coloured inks as well, because there's sort of solid solid foliage in there, which I think would look really nice when you stamp in a coloured ink. You also get 3 different sizes of hearts in here too. This one I think is my favourite. It's full of swirls and heart designs inside the heart. Then you have a medium-sized design that is just sort of like a polka dot heart pattern. And then you have a tiny little heart that's also got a sort of polka dot design inside it as well. And this one is really pretty. I had the idea, but I didn't get a chance to make that one because I already had 12 cards and I thought I'd better stop. But I was thinking you could use this as like a string and have it so the hearts are dangling on a card, kind of like heart-shaped baubles or something. But I also used this as a background as well. You can stamp them going like vertically or horizontally on a card, and I think they look really nice just to add something extra to a patterned paper background as well. So that is the first one, which is called Splendoured Love. Then the second one is called You and Me, because obviously it says You and Me in the stamp set. I really love this large heart design. I actually only... No, I did use it twice. I used it once in its entirety and once just for these like bottom elements on it, because I thought they were really sweet to have as like little hanging elements coming in on your card, because it kind of looks like Zen doodles, you know, those kind of like, what are they called? I'm sure there's another name for them. I can't remember what it is, but like they're sort of dangly, so maybe it's called a Zen dangle, I don't know. Anyway, that kind of a sort of look, but you've got it instantly done for you. You don't have to doodle it yourself. And then you also have this one, which is really nice. It's like a scratchy heart design, and obviously the heart doesn't stamp in the centre. You just have this sort of blocky design, which you can cut like in a wonky square kind of shape, or you can really follow the angular elements of it and give a really sort of unusual shape around it. Or you can cut wiggly up to the edge of it as well, and I think all of them look nice. And you can also cut out the centre and have it raised up as an aperture, or you can use this little scribbly heart, stamp it and then cut it out and put it on top. I think that looks really nice. I've done that on a couple of the cards I've done, I think. And then you have all sorts of different sentiments in here too. So you've got love and then you, and I really love that mixture of the 2 fonts as well. Then you've got true, so you can have true love. You've got together, us and me, so or you can have like me and you, and then you've got this little square as well that you could put around the ampersand if you wanted to like raise it up on 3D, or you wanted to make it look similar to the other kind of elements that are on here. But I also use that as part of a background too. And then you also get another little heart as well, which has kind of got like a paint strokey kind of look inside it, like a distressed kind of look. So that is the You and Me stamp set. Then we have this one, which is called Love and Kisses, and it's got a really large floral rosy kind of design on it, and I've coloured that in Copics on one of my samples. You've got another one of these gorgeous sort of doodly sort of string kind of designs, which again I've used in a background on a card, but you could easily use that to make this heart hang like a kind of bauble on a card. You've got this really lovely one, which I used on one of my cards too. I just stamped it in black and white and trimmed it out, and I thought it was a really nice extra element. It's the kind of thing you could stamp on the back of the card actually, and have like handmade with love, and then have this sort of thing as an emblem on the back of your card. And then word-wise you have, in a field of roses be a wildflower, which I'm presuming is why there is just one little random flower within this rose. I mean, that kind of looks like another kind of rose, but yeah, it's kind of like, I think that's why it's there, to go with that sentiment. And then we have a few extra little words, so you can do love, oh where's love, love and hugs, or you can do with love, or you can do hugs and kisses. So lots of different options to mix with those 4 little words and an ampersand. And then you have one tiny little heart as well, which is always useful, because you could create a whole background just with that tiny little heart stamp as well, which I think could be really lovely. Then we have, you probably heard me raving about the Super Sentiment stamp set in some of my other Polkadoodles videos. But this is like the kind of love themed version of that kind of stamp set. It's a slightly different font, I think it is anyway. Or maybe some of them are the same, some of them are slightly different. The way the O is kind of raised up with a little line underneath, or there's like a small little E in the word as well. But this one is called Everlasting Sentiments, and you have hundreds, well, not quite hundreds, but you know, you've got loads of different words in here that you could build proper sentences, or just quick simple sentiments as well. And I love that you get my favourite as well. I love doing happy everything on cards, and the other set has happy and everything in it too. So you've got love, marriage, togetherness just by itself. You have happiness because you can't put ness on the end of happy because it's an I, not a Y. But you can do you can mix and match some of the words together, so you can have togetherness. What about amazingness? I think that would work. Everlastingness, I don't know. You know, there's that little ness, so you can add it to other words. So you've got best, heart, tomorrow, forever, always, I, amazing day, happy anniversary, ampersand, everlasting, eternity, wedding, did, to, special, loving, thing, ever, found, be, stole, incredible, everything, adore, is, engagement, timeless, dream, true, us, come, Valentine, husband, partner, my, wife, girl, friend, boy, fiance, home, life, endless, rock, today, perfect, wish, thee, are, with, you, are, happiness. That's R and R. I think I've said them like the same, hour and R, really. And then a tiny little heart again, which is different to the other heart on that other set, slightly smaller, so you could use them in conjunction with each other as well if you want to. So those are the stamp sets, and then I will show you what I have done with them. So let me go back to the first set. Obviously I've mixed and matched these sentiments like all throughout all of the cards really, because you can mix them with the words that are in here as well. So, for example, you could add the words happy and day and then do happy Valentine Day if you want to, you know, all sorts of different things you can mix and match. So basically I've used this on most of the cards. But with this first stamp set, which is the Splendoured Love one, I have done 4 main samples using that, and then I think I did it in the background. Yeah, I did it in the background of this one. So, this is the one with the balloons on it, where I've stamped that balloon image 3 times. I did one in the middle, one off to one side, one off to the other side, and brought all their strings down in the same position. And then I just went through, I think I stamped the balloon portion twice on 3 different patterns of paper. So I had 6 of the stamped version. I think I only used 5 in the end, but I wanted to have plenty so I didn't have to stamp another one out. And basically you just want to keep cutting balloons, sticking from the back first and then adding ones further forward. And because you were putting the pattern paper on top, you didn't have to mask when you stamped the 3 sets of balloons. So it gets kind of confusing in the middle where you've got this side of this balloon clump and this side of this balloon clump behind a whole balloon clump. But, you know, you can figure it out. I think it looks really cool as well. And on some of them, obviously, because you're adding them in the foreground, you need to continue their strings a little bit as well. Like this one, I drew a little string going across that other balloon. But I think that is really, really effective. I think that's just a nice, really simple card. I mean, it took a while to do all of the cutting out, but I think it looks really cool. And then on the highlight for all the balloons, I just used a white gel pen, because obviously I'd done these in patterned paper. So just adding that white gel pen gives it the highlight. For the background, I used the small heart and the Splendid Thing sentiment. And I did it with tumbled glass distress oxide, just stamped it a few times in the background, first and second generation, same with the hearts, and then I splattered some on as well, and then I went on with the paper piecing on top, and then I did the same sentiment just to hide the sort of messy join where all of the 3 bundles overlap at the bottom, but you can still see the strings coming out the bottom of it, so I thought that was quite a nice design. So that's that one. Then I did this one where I've used that heart as the focal element in the centre, and I stamped it in black but heat embossed in clear, and then I watercoloured that in as well, and I used the My Valentine out of the set too. So I thought that was a nice simple kind of card, and I've used the patterned paper in the background, and I've heat embossed an image on there, but that's from one of the other sets, so I'll bring this back when I show that. Then this one, again, using that as a focal element, I just stamped it in a Copic friendly black ink, and then used my Copics to add colour, and I picked the colours from the background that I'd created, and then here I've mixed in the word happiness and the always from this stamp set too, to do that. Then I have this one, which is using the 2 solid hearts and the the sketchy hearts from a different one, but the 2 solid hearts are from this one. And I used the, what's it called? Duchess Blue Nouveau embossing powder. I thought that went really nicely with the colours I'd chosen for the background. And they, look how well they heat emboss as well. They're so glossy and perfectly stamped, which I really like. And I used Happy Engagement from the Sentiment set too, and I also stamped Engagement in the background as well. And then for this one, this is basically showing you the background. I used the heart in the background for this one, and I heat embossed it with that popsicle pink colour onto one of the patterned papers. And then I took watercolours and just watercoloured in a tiny little bit, like so all the little flowers that are in the heart. So through the aperture on some of those you can see that little flowers coloured and stuff. And I also used the Swirly stamp from this one and stamped it in the background in a vertical fashion as well. You can kind of see it in there. And that was stamped with Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide, and I did ink blend a little bit with Spun Sugar Distress Oxide around those hearts as well to try and make them pop out a little bit more too. Then the next stamp set is actually let's do this one first. So the next stamp set is You and Me, with that gorgeous large heart design. So let me pick out the samples using this one, because quite a few of them. Okay, so this that's where I got the sketchy heart from on this card. That's from this stamp set. Then you just saw on this one, I just keep saying it's really annoying. So I've used the bottom portion of this heart design to bring the little strings down into the card, and then I also used the gorgeous like scribbly scratchy kind of a heart on there as well. And this is all done on the patterned papers. So the whole background I just showed you is done on a patterned paper, but all of these are actually done on a patterned paper too. And I love how their patterned paper can really hold up to heat embossing, and it's raised up on 3D foam and it's still, you know, keeping its shape and everything. And I just heat embossed them in white and then trimmed around them. And this is the one where I did sort of the wonky quadrilateral kind of a shape around them. Just keeping it really simple and alternating the darker and lighter patterned papers with that as well. And then using the Love You sentiment on there too. Then for this one, this is where I said I used that little small square, and I just stamped it randomly down the background and then took one of the patterned papers, stamped it like 10 times on the patterned paper and trimmed them out and added it over the top. And then this is one of the ones where I cut around it differently. So the stamped one, which is onto a patterned paper, I trimmed around it wiggly, so sort of curvy and all the way around up to it. Then I stuck it on white card and trimmed around it with a sort of irregular kind of 6-sided sort of a shape, and it's quite angular. And then I stuck that onto a piece of black card and then trimmed around it again just to give a tiny little thin black border. And then I also used that scribbly heart right in the centre of that too. And then I used the Together word that's out of the centre of this one, but I mixed and matched it with Forever from the other sentiment set as well. So I really like that Nikki's given us that extra sentiment set, because it really makes all the little words in this one go a lot further, which is really nice. And then to finish this one off and bring the black and white into the background more, I just did some of my Swirly Nouveau drops that I like to do. So that's just the gloss black on the white or the white on the black as well. Then for this one, I kept it really, really simple. Actually, maybe I should show you this one first. So you can see here, I did a drippy background, and this piece is actually the top of that drippy background. I took an A5 piece of white card and did the drippy all the way down it, so that I could decide, like, because you never know where the drips are going to end and whether I wanted the end of the drip on this card or not. And then I couldn't throw that bit away because it just looks so pretty, a rainbow sort of stripy pattern. So that's how this card came about, just around that piece of excess that I had. And all I did was I took the Love You from this set, then there was a scripty love in the next set, and then the word you from the word set as well. So it says love you all the way down but in different fonts. And then I used the happy everything from the sentiment set as well to finish that one off. And then obviously this was the main idea for doing the drippy background. I just thought a drippy background would go really nicely with this heart with the dangly bits on the bottom. And I wasn't sure whether I wanted to just stamp this heart straight onto the design and add colour to it. So when I was adding the colour, I did add the colour straight to the one that I'd stamped on the background, but I also had stamped another one and was adding the colour in the same places to that one too. And in the end I decided to cut into the other one that I'd stamped, and I cut around them to give the little raised up hearts, and then I cut around this whole central heart element. And originally I was going to cut the centre out, but when I placed it on top with the solid white centre, I thought, no, that looks really nice just like that, because it kind of makes it stand out more because you haven't got the drips going behind or inside the sort of heart wreath design. So I really love how this one came out. And again, I was mixing the sentiments together, so I used the True from this stamp set, but then I used Together and Ness from the other stamp set to give true togetherness. And obviously as I was colouring this heart design, I switched colours from where the drips were happening. So as you know, as you went from a red drip to a orange drip, I changed colour, so you get the cool rainbow effect that you've got in the whole background as well. I think this is one of my favourite cards out of all of them. I really enjoyed doing that one. I might try and film a video on that because, again, I've been trying to, I end up working in the night time and I can't film when it's dark, so I haven't filmed any of these. But this is why I want to do these up close videos, so that you've still got some inspiration, you know, if you're short on ideas. So yeah, so that's that one. And then one more. This is the one that I was saying about the background, that I'd done another one where you could really see it. So this is taking silver acrylic paint, brushing or brayering it really thinly onto your jelly plate, and then taking your watercolours and a wide flat brush and doing stripes of the watercolour onto the jelly plate. And then when you pick it up, because you had the acrylic paint on the jelly plate, it stops it from beading up so much, so that you actually get the watercoloured brush strokes in the silver, because you can still see it's all kind of metallic-y now. Even though the watercolours aren't metallic, you still get that metallic in there because of putting it on the jelly plate first. And then to finish this one off, I actually ripped down the side, and the ripped portion is what's on that other card. If I go and show. So I ripped this, I don't know if I can really show it, this ripped portion here, this little panel that's extra, is actually ripped off of this one, and then I jelly printed a little bit more of this design onto it so that it matched for this card. And then obviously I've just silver heat embossed that scratchy heart design, and I cut around that wiggly because I thought that would work with this sort of ripped edge on this one. And then I stamped and heat embossed that heart 3 times and coloured it with the same watercolours that I'd used in the background. And then I just finished off with the little happiness sentiment, and I used some glitter card behind that as well. I really love that simplicity of that card. Then that's all of the ones for this stamp set. One more stamp set to go through. So this one is the Love and Kisses stamp set with that gorgeous focal element of a rose design. So I coloured this one with my alcohol pens, and I got the colours from the background. So this is actually one of the papers that I was telling you about right at the beginning. It's the one with the fleur-de-lis on it. You can kind of see it there in the background. You can see the fleur-de-lis down here. And this is the one I used the raspberry sorbet luster polish on top of. So you've tinted the colour of it. If I get you, yeah. See, this is the original colour of the paper, but adding that raspberry sorbet over the top kind of mutes the pattern a bit, gives it a richer red tone, and also gives it that sparkle as well. And then I also used the Swirly stamp from this set with Aged Mahogany Distress ink to add a sort of horizontal design in the background as well. I splashed on some watered down white acrylic paint. It's kind of blended into the background quite a bit, but then I took my colours for the roses from the background, and I think I was using like the kind of R30s, R50s kind of colours from Copics, if you like to colour with your Copics. And then I was using a sort of peachy colour for that little wildflower, and then it says, "In a field of roses be a wildflower." And I just finished it off with some sequins that I added some little clear gems in the centre of. So that's that one. That's kind of using this set as like the obvious way to use it, just using the focal element and stuff. But then I wanted to do some other different bits and pieces. So this one that I showed you earlier, in the background, I actually clear heat embossed the rose design onto the patterned paper. So you can really make your patterned papers look different by doing things like that. I mean, often when you buy pads of paper or packs of paper, these days you kind of get that like encapsulated glitter in areas of the design, or that sort of like spot foiling. You can like create that yourself, adding any kind of stamps on top of a patterned paper. So for this one, because I just used a clear embossing powder, you've got that kind of clear look. If you'd used a clear sparkly embossing powder, you kind of get that encapsulated glitter sort of look. Or if you use something like flake and glitter glue, you could then get the spot foiled look, because you could use gilding flakes on top of it, or even just like foil sheets that you might use with your hot foiling machines as well. But yeah, so many different ways of adding stamped images on top of patterned paper to make them look a little bit different. So I just wanted to show you that as well. And then I also used this small little one here to add on to this stenciled card, and I also used the Hugs and Kisses together, and then just drew myself a little banner around it and cut it out, and I think that finishes off that card really nicely. And then for this one, I used, it's one of the hearts from here and the two hearts from that other set, which was the one with the balloons, the Splendoured Love one, those two hearts as well. And instead of stamping them black onto white, which I had done before, or a colour onto white, I decided to heat emboss them in white onto black, so they look a little bit different. And then I just added the three of them onto this stenciled card, and then did To My Perfect Incredible Valentine, using lots of the words from the Everlasting Sentiments stamp set. So that was a lot of talking. Hopefully you enjoyed this look at the brand new, what's it called again? Sweethearts collection from Polkadoodles. I try to do these up close videos whenever I can, so I hope you do enjoy them. It's quite nice for me to look back at what cards I made as well. You know, if I haven't had a chance to film them, I kind of forget I ever even made them. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed all of this kind of inspiration using the 4 new stamp sets, the 2 new stencils, and the new paper pack as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!